you have been a popular voice on this topic. Why?
Well, it was after I wrote my book on addiction 14 years ago now that people kept asking me what I knew about, specifically about ayahuasca, which is this Amazonian plant, and the healing of addiction, and I knew nothing. And until I had the opportunity to experience the brew myself, the Peruvian shaman was up here in Vancouver, and I participated, and I got it. Because two things happened. One is that I got in touch with a lot of pain, and I realized that addictions was, not I realized, I already knew this, but I experienced how addiction is an attempt to run away from pain. And I also experienced a deep love, which when you experience that, there's no reason to run anywhere from anything, So if the psychedelics could reveal the deep pain that people carry inside themselves, from which they're trying to escape through their addictive behaviors, and they can experience the deep love, the deep sense of unity and belonging and connection, which is our birthright. And if we had experienced it in the first place, we wouldn't be addicted in the second place. So that's how it began for me. And then that was 14 years ago now. And I began to work with the plant, lead retreats with it. When I say lead retreats, I don't mean that I was an ayahuasca or shaman, but I help to facilitate retreats, help people set their intentions, process their experience. And then I've had the opportunity to experience other psychedelics, MDMA, LSD, mushrooms, of course, 5-MeO, DMT, and some others. And I began to see what others have noticed, which is that there's tremendous healing possibility that opens up with the use of psychedelics in the proper context.
Thank you. I mean, while focusing on addiction, we know that once upon a time in the addiction field, it was like, are you harm reduction or are you abstinence? And now the conversation is, do you believe it's okay if you have addictions to work with psychedelics or not? And I just wondered, for you, what does that look like? Perhaps somebody who is addicted or who's an alcoholic working with psychedelics, is that a dangerous thing to do?
Well, first of all, from the point of view of people who have been addicted to substances, and by the way, when I talk about addiction, I don't just talk about substances. I mean, to me, addictions encompass a whole range of human behaviors. I should start with that.
Yeah.
So addiction for me is manifested in any behavior that a person finds temporary pleasure or relief in, and therefore craves, but then suffers negative consequences and can't give up or doesn't. That's an addiction. So that could be drugs, substances, nicotine, caffeine, heroin, whatever. It could also be gambling, sex, shopping, pornography, eating, work, extreme sports, internet, gaming, cell phones, even meditation and spiritual work sometimes,
Yeah.
So it's not the behavior, it's the internal relationship to it. But in terms of substances, I can certainly see how people might argue, well, come on, you're addicted to a substance and not using a substance to get off the substance, which is understandable, but it's a mistake. Because even alcohol, I would say, could be used spiritually. And in some places it has been. It's not the substance. It's what's been called the set and the setting, which means the mindset, the intention, and the context. So people can certainly use alcohol to go blotto, to obliterate themselves, to just numb themselves out of the pain. But, alcohol is called the alcoholic spirits. There's a reason why they call it spirits, and in the proper context, ceremonially, I could see how it could be used to see reality more clearly. In fact, there's a Latin phrase, in vino veritas, which means in the wine there's truth. And there were ancient rituals around alcohol. Now, all I'm saying here is that it's a question of the mindset and the intention and the context in which it's used. So, whereas the addictive use of any substance, for example, marijuana. I mean, people use marijuana very often just to numb themselves or to escape or to have a good time. But some people I know use marijuana as a therapeutic tool and as a spiritual sacrament. The addictive use has to do with escaping reality. The healing or the spiritual use has to do with getting closer to reality.
So can we get addicted to ayahuasca or iboga or MDMA?
Well, nobody will get addicted to ayahuasca. I mean, it tastes so awful and it makes you puke. Why would you want to get addicted to it? If you want to have a good time, do something else. What people can get addicted to is not the substance. Mm-hmm. Nobody has withdrawal when they come off ayahuasca. Nobody is dependent on it, and nobody craves the experience as such. What people can do is if they have deep, maybe even very insightful, even enlightenment-like experiences of ayahuasca, but they don't incorporate it into their lives, they can get addicted to the ceremony as a way of finding some joy in life or some meaning in life. So in that sense, but it's not a substance addiction as such. It's an experience addiction. Now, you know what? Have I seen it? Very rarely. I mean, it's almost, I certainly don't have any great desire. After ayahuasca ceremony, I don't have any great desire to go back and have another one the following week, So no, I don't, and iboga, my God, iboga is like really the most difficult experience you've ever had in your whole life. You don't get addicted to it. Mm-hmm. So no, there's no addiction there. As to your question though, about while people are using, can they do these psychedelics? Well, not while under the influence, for sure. You can't come into an ayahuasca ceremony or an iboga ceremony, under the influence of any substance. You can't. But can you be a user and not having drunk for a week and have an ayahuasca ceremony? The ayahuascans would say no. They'll say you have to be clean for a month. With iboga, for sure you can. In fact, that's what people do. People might be addicted to heroin and they come into iboga precisely to get off the heroin. And by God, here's a substance that you can be a heroin addict for 20 years. And then you do the iboga and your cravings go away almost overnight. So people not only can, they do use it that way as a way of getting off the substance. So it depends on which psychedelic you're talking about.
Okay.